Just had a sip of my Sprite, y'all. So this is the special episode that I promised I would do because I am good at that, or I'm trying to be good at that. Sometimes I fail, but today I'm doing good. This is a special episode on how to start a cross stitch, which I was asked by someone on Instagram. I forget who you were. I know Polly chimed in, so most people I know how to start one of these, but there are a lot of new cross stitchers that have been inspired by the rash of knitting people who have started cross stitching, and that is wonderful. So here's your little tutorial on how to start a cross stitch. I picked a small that I have. This one is a 5" by 5" piece. I got it at Value Village in Canada ages ago for 99 cents. Sorry about the glare, we're just going to have to work with it. So, it's a tiger from a carousel. It's called Carousel Tiger. I cannot show you the pattern, but there it be. So, I am going to skip. I'm going to skip my first step, which is usually to separate my floss. When I'm separating my floss, I will either take a piece of cardboard and cut or hole punch it and put each colorway through, put the color and the symbol next to it, or I will bobbinate it and write that on sticky stuff and put it on the bobbin. But that is usually my first thing to do, is to separate my floss if it doesn't come pre-separated. This, of course, 99 cents. I'm not expecting much. It didn't come pre-separated. There are 12 colors. What I will show you here, there we go. So this one tells me how many strands per stitch, which is good. Sometimes it's written in the descriptive boxes. For instance, does the mirror say it? Yeah, okay. So for Mirabilia's, stitched area in which the stitch count of blah 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 stitched 2/2. So for 32 count, I wouldn't say do 2/2. For 14 count, that's probably 1/1. But for 32 count, it's stitched 2/2, so 2 strands over 2 squares. Now, for the most part, if you get a 14 count, it's a given that it's going to be however many strands over 2 strands over 1, 2/1, very common. Keep your hands clean. One sec. Sorry. Keep your hands clean. Fabric in this kit is 14 count Aida, an even weave fabric. It's woven through small squares. Blah 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 blah. To prevent the edges of the fabric from fraying, baste them with your own thread. Tape them with masking tape. You can get fray check at like Walmart or something and just daub it on the sides. Let it rest for an hour and it'll be good. Separate the floss according to the color list. The floss provided with your kit is a 6-ply. You only require 2-ply unless it's black, which is 3. Even though it says 4. What? It says use 3-ply when stitching black, but up here it says 4 stitches or 4 strands when using black. It's got which stitches you'll be using and how to use them. This is put out by Janlin. This is really old. This is really old because it's a Janlin kit put out by Monarch. They've updated their fronts, but whatever. So normally I would separate this either on a piece of cardboard, and again, if you don't feel like being fancy, don't. I just literally, when I do it for my mom, the way she likes it is to take the piece of cardboard, usually the one that comes with this, right? So it's got that cardboard piece, and just cut slits about 1 inch down into it in intervals and put the colors through there and then label them. That's how my mother likes it done. Although I have brought her to the dark side of bobbinating. You can bobbinate them too. I don't care. Pick your poison. Whatever works best for you. Now, to start stitching, in this case, we get this piece of Aida. Sometimes you don't get, sometimes it comes in different different sizes. Like this is a square. I'm doing a perfect square. If I wasn't doing a perfect square, it would be different. But I'm doing a perfect square. So, there are two different ways I start my pieces. One is like the Pokemon piece, which if you watched the previous Flosstube episode you saw. Hold on. Let me just grab it out for you. With the Pokemon piece, I have gridded. I have done gridding. In which case, if you look, right there, I marked my center, and this one line that doesn't make any sense here, it doesn't have a marking on it, and that's the center line. And then I counted on my pattern how far away from the center line I was, and then I started everything from the center line up. As you can see, here it doesn't, it's 5 stitches off here too. And then I find my 0 point and I start there, and I grid it all out. I only gridded a quarter of this because it's huge. Now, I only grid it because it's huge and because it's a full coverage. If you're doing something where it's not full coverage, where it's this piece like Mirabilia, I started the same way I'm about to show you. So she was started the way I'm about to show you, and you're going to want your needle. Apparently a needle came with this. I cannot see it. I probably lost it in the move because the lid is open, or it was cut open. I cut it open ages ago. I was going to start it and I never did. So to find your center, which is what you want to do first, you want to fold your piece in half. And it may not necessarily be the way it came because they don't really care about folding it precisely, but you want to care about folding it precisely when you're figuring out your center. So fold it one way, fold it in the opposing way. This is really stiff too. It's really old and it's very starched. Now I have my corner, and I'm going to take my pin, I'm going to take my thread, my floss, not my thread or my floss, my needle, which has nothing on it, and stick it through the center. The center stitch. So that is dead center-ish. It's dead center-ish. Ish is good enough for most of these projects. If you're off by a stitch, life is not going to end. I don't have a threaded one. Let's see here. For the sake of the show, I will now separate out what I need for a second here. Okay. I believe there's a plus green. Okay. This is a plus symbol green, and I'm going to go with that's probably the closest thing by looking at the pattern, but I will show you in a sec. So, apparently I'm stealing all the things. So, if you're new to cross stitch, a very easy way that I just learned about watching Flosstube to thread your needle so that you don't have to deal with holding it at the back. To create the loop at the bottom, you take one strand from your thing, double it back on itself, and you thread the two ends together into your needle, and then you get a loop. This is a loop method. So I've got a loop at the bottom there, which you can see, and then I got the two ends through the needle. Alright, now to figure out, we've got dead center marked on our Ada, and all patterns, quick flash, come with little arrows. An arrow up here, an arrow over here. If you can figure out how to do it off of that, more power to you. And then I'm going to, don't think I have a pen up here, but normally I would take a pen. Or a pencil, a marking implement of some kind. Oh, here we go. Here's a pen. I'm going to take my pen. I'm going to follow with my finger one line. I'm going to follow the top line down and... Okay, thank you. Are you still there? You're still there. Okay, something else popped up for a sec. Okay, so I'm going to take one line and follow it with my finger. I'm going to take the other line and follow it with my finger until they meet. I'm going to mark that point. Oh great, there's purple ink in my thing. But okay, so there is my marking. That is my dead center on my pattern. I always start dead center and work my way out. I could lie to you and say I have this really involved method, and I'm not saying my way is perfect either. I'm just saying this is the way I do it, and this is how it works for me. So I'm going to put the green back in. I don't know, actually maybe I'll start stitching on this now that I've done this, but I haven't organized my thread yet. That's something that'll have to be done. So right next, so the thing I would be starting according to this is this green right in here in this saddle, the green of the in the saddle. So according to that, I'm going to have one green on one side of center and then two greens past it. I'm going to take my thing and take this other, so I put my needle in. I'm going to take the marking needle out since I put my needle in, and I now know what I'm doing, which is 3 in a row. So to do my loop start, I just pulled it through till I have a little bit of a loop. I'm going to bring it up through diagonally. So I have my little loop and my needle is coming up. I'm going to put my needle through the loop and pull. Once it gets a little taut, I'm going to take my needle and go through the hole, the diagonal hole I just came through with the needle. I'm going to pull it back, and it's going to force that knot into the opposing side. That way I don't have to hold anything down while I'm stitching. I would also probably put this in a Q-snap if I had a Q-snap big enough for it, but I don't. My 6 might work for it, but whatever. I'm going to just stitch in hand a few stitches here to show you that this is how I start. Stitch one way, go back following the stitches, right? So I've stitched my 3, now I'm going to go back. Gonna go back, and then I would take a highlighter or a pencil, depending on what your preference is, and I would color in the boxes I just did, so I knew what I just did. So there are the 3 for my start. 1 is on one side of the center, 2 are on the other side of the center, and I know that it corresponds to my pattern. Now, I guess I would go down next. You can choose however you want to do it. I like to do all one color first before I move on to the next one. I tend to, what is the term? Is cross country? Like I said, I'm just doing my first ever real attempt at parking. I'm not sure how long that'll last. I don't like cross-stitching cross-country. Cross-country is my favorite. And, whew, I forgot how not easy it is to stitch in hand. I could probably put this in a hoop. I think I have a hoop the right size for this, but I hate using hoops when I know that they're gonna just crinkle everything. When there's crinkle involved, I'm not a fan. But the Aida is super starchy, so it is holding up for me quite decently. Ooh, my foot just fell asleep. That's what I get for crossing my legs too long. Okay, so here is is 2 rows. There we go. 2 rows of green, which is my start. Put this through here, which is my start. So what I did would be 2 rows right there. That is how I start a cross stitch, a simple cross stitch. It's not a very complex cross stitch, but it works. So now that I've shown you that, I'm going to put it all back in its thing. Maybe I will start it this week. I don't know. I've got Pokemon, and I'm kind of obsessed with Stevie right now. But that is the center start method. A lot of people use it. Some people will actually like find the center point and then cross stitch up to the top and then move over to the right and start there and go all the way down to the left diagonal. It's up to you. For small things, I do a starburst. For my Mirabilia, I found the center point, and I went and did all the top, and then I went and did all, and now I'm going to do all the bottom. It doesn't really matter so long as you start at the center. Hopefully that helps everybody, and yeah, now I'm going to go grab a bite to eat. Bye!